Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode in Mighty Brad's podcast. Today, we have two guests, Kyle and Cory.
I am a business coach. Currently, my business is in the high ticket remote sales space. I provide sales consulting to businesses at the moment. I'm also working on a software to help make that sales consulting and fulfillment easier for other people and myself included. And I have a couple other things on the pipelines, but those are like my main things at the moment that I'm working on. So stoked to be here, man.
Let's go, bro. Yeah, I'm Cory Utech. I'm a professional MMA fighter. No, I'm joking. I'm an online business coach and been helping these two guys out a little bit. I do high performance coaching and really, our offer is 0 to 10K. So if you're just looking to kind of get your online business off the ground, it's what we do. We do kind of 50% high performance mindset, energy management, schedule management, all that kind of stuff that could take you out of the game. And then obviously the technical aspect as well. So also super pumped to be here, man. Brad's the man.
Awesome. Appreciate you guys being here. I wanted to ask you guys. So, a lot of people talk about some people are lone wolf entrepreneurs, some people love to be surrounded by people. I wanted to ask you guys, in your personal experience, is it lonely being an entrepreneur?
Absolutely, it's lonely being an entrepreneur. And those people that say that they're lone wolves, like I don't know how they do it, to be honest. I tried to be doing the wolf route a lot, and it wasn't until I started investing in mentorships and masterminds and such to get it around a community until things started actually clicking and coming into place for me. It's so easy to burn out and basically almost give up, right? Or maybe even pivot. Sometimes it's just a pivot. It's not giving up, but it's like pivoting to a different idea or service or product or whatever. Having a community around you to kind of like slap your hand when you're reaching for the shiny object is really important in my opinion. And being like, hey, what are you doing, dude? No, stay focused on what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. You're gonna hit roadblocks. And I only found that in like masterminds and having us people around you that have like the same mindset and stuff. Because the first issue that people run into when they're an entrepreneur is not having the community. And without the community, like I don't know, you kind of fall apart. So that's my opinion on things. And I just turned 33, and I've been doing business stuff since I joined the military, and that was back in 2010. Not until I turned about 30 did I start actually getting into masterminds and mentorships and things like that.
You don't even have to be an entrepreneur, but just doing something a little bit different from the norm of what most people are doing, just it breeds a certain kind of loneliness and for a certain period of time, maybe for a long period of time, maybe for the rest of your life, because it's everybody you meet isn't going to be like-minded, right? That's natural for everyone, but especially on this journey, you're doing something a little bit different. It's like, well, most people don't have their own business. Most people aren't even focused on their mindset. Most people aren't in trying to improve their lives and their personal lives, not even in business, right? And so sometimes I found at least sometimes it's hard to relate to people.
Yeah, and that's one of the bigger issues as well is like most people not only do they not have those things, they don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, what you're trying to do, right? That's why you always hear you're gonna outgrow your friends because they liked you who you were, not who you're becoming. There's a lot of change that happens when you become a business owner, a lot more discipline, and you're not going out to party all the time. You're just putting your head down and working, and things will get a bit more serious, and some people can't handle that. And then other times, they just don't understand your vision. They think that what you're doing just doesn't sound right because they don't understand it, and so they also try to bring you down unintentionally. And sometimes it's your family. They think they want the best for you because they think that what you're trying to do is unrealistic in from their perspective. But again, I think the community is really huge. Kind of everybody rooting each other on and keeping you motivated, and keeping you on that discipline track. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts, Cory?
Yeah, could not agree more, man. I think it is super lonely, dude. It's such a simulation type, endeavor that you go on where you kind of break out of the matrix. And typically, most people in your life are looking at you like, dude, what are you doing? This doesn't make sense. Who do you think you are? And I think anytime you can surround yourself with people who do get it, it helps a lot. It really
Yeah.
does. Both in person and in online. I encourage people all the time, like, dude, if you see somebody who's talking on a sales call at Starbucks, like, introduce yourself. Like, make a real friend in person that you can also go and chop it up with, because I think that's also super important too.
Just putting yourself out there and meeting new people, even like you said, in person or online. And Kyle, your point about the community, I've come to the point. I think it's essential. I mean, I recently started a community with my buddy of like fellow content creators and entrepreneurs just to come together and give each other ideas and stuff like that. And it's like, I realized everybody who says I'm gonna do it alone, I'm gonna put my head down, be by myself, and no matter what for the next 30 years until I make $50 million, it's like I always think to myself, it's like, well, if I cut off every single person in my life and I devoided myself of human connection, and I got $1 million or $50 million, $50 million is nice, but if I have zero human connections, what is any of that worth? Because I mean, we all know, I mean, just fundamentally as a human being, in order to be healthy, you need human connection. And when you voluntarily even deprive yourself of it, it's in the short term, it may be okay, right? I mean, it's like the business I'm starting is a solo thing for now. I know some of the stuff I don't know exactly all the realms that you guys have been in. I'm sure you've worked with other people and also did things by yourself. And it's like, sometimes you do have to be alone for a little while or spend more time by yourself than with other people. But I think just throwing people out the window in your life is the worst move you can possibly make.
Yeah, it kind of goes to the big trifecta, right? The health, the wealth, and relationships. The three things that you really need to balance in your life, which Corey talks about a lot. Devoting yourself of that connection is not the right route. Because if you start doing that to your own people, then how are you gonna? I imagine how are you gonna treat your own clients? You're gonna start getting detached, and then you're just gonna become a robot. That's how I imagine it, at least. And so that's why I harp on community a lot.
Yeah, it's huge, man. It's everything. And it is tough, Brad. I mean, dude, we all go through this journey and you're inevitably going to have people close to you who are like, kind of switch up, right? I know we've talked about that a little bit. So I think you see people's true colors oftentimes when you take this journey and just kind of got to take it as it comes. That's kind of what I found is like, you can't force people to support you. And if they don't, like, dude, it's all good. We can still be buddies and I'll still support you, but I think you definitely kind of, see who's in it for the long run, especially when you kind of put yourself out there like this. And the good news is, yeah, there's more access to people who are like-minded than ever. It's easier than ever to connect with people. I haven't
Yeah.
even met you guys in person ever, which is pretty crazy to say. Hopefully we'll change that sometime. Thank God that, it's like guys like us could just connect. Cause yeah, usually would be pretty lonely road for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I've realized, I mean, just throughout putting out content, I don't want to get into too specific details, but through my last year and a half journey of putting out content, before I started putting out content, I couldn't see who really supported my life and who didn't, right? Now I can see, okay, I heard they were talking bad about me behind my back to my friend. Okay, this person no longer talks to me anymore. Okay, this person thinks what I'm doing is really cool and tells me about it all the time, right? So you get to see who really supports you and who is praying for your downfall. And it's a really sad thing that is that sometimes it's people that you think you're close with, like you genuinely believe you're close with them, but then you suddenly realize that they're preying on your downfall, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, and that just goes to show that it's a lot of times their own mindset. They start thinking of you as like, oh, the only way you can start making that kind of money is if you're scamming people. They have such a negative outlook on life sometimes. And I actually realized that me and a long-term friend just went our separate ways because of the same situation where his mindset was just like, you have to be scamming people. Like, how are you making this money? I'm like, I'm not even making that much money yet, bro. What are you talking about? Like I'm not even. I'm scratching the surface. Um, and he was like, it was just such an interesting thing to see because that was my first real experience of like outgrowing your friends. But on another side of things, like talking about what Corey's talking about with like in person relationships, it's interesting because I've tried to keep in touch with a lot of the other like entrepreneurial-ish people from like my school, right, that I kind of grew up with, and they don't really got much going on. you know, like when I'm in their area, I hit them up, we try to get like lunch once in a while, and I'm like, how are things going? He's like, oh, now I'm just I'm trying to run a drop shipping store. I'm like, okay, cool. I actually have some trainings that I bought on that. Let's go over that together. We go over it a little bit, and then next time I check on him, I'm like, oh, but how's that drop shipping going? He's like, oh, I just stopped that, and now I'm trying to do a food delivery service. I'm like, okay, cool. Then the next time I see him, I'm like, oh, that just wasn't working out. I'm trying this other thing. I'm like, man, you just need to focus on one thing. What are we doing here? And then I got into a position.
MLM, network
Yeah,
marketing. Yeah.
MLM's like everybody's first, I feel like. MLM got me into a lot of it too. Not gonna lie, but
They almost got me too, bro. It was close. It was a close call.
I don't like harp on the business model per se. I harp on the recruiting aspect
Yeah.
more, like people just getting hungry and getting people in that shouldn't be there, and that's what happens when you expand the way MLMs typically do. So going back to my friends from school, they're just not really doing it, and it's like, man. But even like the people that are in your life that you think are like, okay, cool, like these guys are gonna be like partners, we're gonna grow together. It's like you end up someone, whether it's you or somebody else, they start kind of outpacing everybody, and you kind of gotta leave them behind too. You're like, man, like, I don't know what to tell you. You know, like you're still trying to figure something out, and I'm taking off on it in an area, and so that's tough too, because like you feel like the camaraderie is there, but then you start outgrowing them, and it's like, man, I really wanted you to come up with me, but like I don't know how to help you out because you keep switching your ideas. You got to pick something and go with it.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
lonely
think
at the
that's a big
top,
thing.
bro. Like there's a reason I think that's a phrase is like Mike Tyson, bro. He wasn't like, hey man, come with me. He was just like, I'm gonna fucking murder everybody I see in that ring. That's just what I'm gonna do for the next 10 years, And it's just like he had his coach, he had his corner, and Tom Brady talks about that a lot. I know you saw that interview, Kyle, where he was like, dude, I wasn't friends with like my friends were on my team. As soon as you left my team, you're not my friend anymore. Like, which is kind of it's kind of interesting. But I think, if you want to be at that level, you got your team and dude, you got your family, and that's about it. But that's all you need, really. I mean, that's kind of the good
Yeah.
news.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because sometimes your family are the ones that also bring you down, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think
Yeah.
that the thing I've noticed at least is that it's more like some people don't understand where you are at and just want you to stay the same. And so they kind of bring you down and try and keep you grounded at their level or at the level you used to be. But other people, they also don't really understand what you're doing, right? They don't understand, but they're just happy to see that you're working on something and seeing that you are growing. And if you tell them, hey, man, I just hit my $10,000 a month, they're like, heck yeah, it's awesome. Keep going. Like, what's next? Other people, you tell them, like my buddy, right? Oh, dude, I just hit $10,000 this month. I hit $12,000 a month. It's like, dude, you must be scamming people. Like, it's like a completely different response. Like, where'd that come from, man? What are you talking about? And so really making sure that you hold tight to those people that even if they're not entrepreneurs and but they're still supportive of you no matter what you're doing and what you got going on.
Hold on to those people
Hold
tight.
on to those people, man. Yeah, because they're kind of harder to find.
Alex
Like my sister.
Ramosi talks about that a lot, dude. Not to cut you off, but yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
the friends who genuinely like cheer you on when you win. Like those are just so hard to come by. We're all like that. And, I mean, yeah, that's obviously just from a place of insecurity and fear-based thinking. But those
Yeah.
people are hard to come by, man. Especially it's not even in today's world. It's just like how it's always been. I think it's always how it will be. But when you do find those people, it's like, dude, hold on tight and treat them right. I'm a
Yeah.
rapper as well, besides an MMA fighter. Yeah.
I think Hormozy talked about the story, or I think it was him who spoke about the lonely chapter in your life where it's like, after you start going a little bit different way, you start to outgrow your friends or people don't always support you. And he gave the story of like how when he first opened his gym and he was sleeping in the corner of it, people saw his blanket and his pillow. People came in and they're like, oh, it's like everyone's like, oh yeah, I support you. I hope you make it, blah, blah, blah. And then once he had managers in there and hired employees, he wasn't there all the time anymore. People are like, the same people were like, who wanted him to make it or said they wanted him to make it, are like, oh, you're not too good for us now. All right. And it's like, and he made
Yeah.
this really interesting point that really hit me. And he was saying how sometimes people want you to be better, but they don't want you to be better than them.
Yep.
And then it's like the second, and I think in terms of like a biological level, I think we're all wired to a degree to be at a certain level of competition with other people. And so like I think on a biological level, sometimes you're like, oh, if this person's making more money than me or they're better than me, it's like how do they get there, blah blah. Your first instinct, the human mind thinks about the most negative outcome or possibility. So it's like, oh, they must be on steroids, they must be scamming people, et cetera, right? But there's a way to override that, right? With consciousness. It's like, okay, it's like, I used to be the person who looked at people like that, right? And it's like I've shifted my consciousness to be able to look at people who are doing better than me in any realm of, okay, I can still support them and I can see what they're doing. And all right, they're on a similar path as me. All right, well, why don't I, instead of just being negative towards them and talking behind their back, I just become a more positive person and I want better for myself and I actually genuinely support them. And I ask them questions. Hey, how did you get to this point? What did you have to do? Because I mean, I'm sure you guys already know if somebody comes up to you and asks you, hey, Cory, how'd you build this business? Kyle, how are you doing this so well? It's like you guys would love to share that information with them, right? But people don't ask. People instead just like to,
Yeah.
nah, they're scamming people, they're this and that, right? And it's a sad reality because the world could be such a better place if we all took consciousness to another level and looked at people who are doing better than us in this light.
Yeah. I want to talk about, trying to help people and share. I've done it with a lot of people. A lot of people reach out that I don't even know. Like they just find me somehow and they're like, hey, tell me about yourself. What are you doing? Like, how do you do it? And like I share with these people. But you start realizing that people don't take action. They don't care. Like you can give them the step-by-step blueprint, be like, yeah, do these exact things and you'll be making at least $10,000 a month, if not more. And then I'd be like, cool. And then never hear from him again. They didn't do it. He follow up with like, hey, did you do this stuff? And he's like, oh no, I just been busy. Oh, you know how life is. Like, no, I don't know how life is actually. Because I just get shit done. like, like, what are you doing? It's interesting. There's a phrase that I've grown more and more to believe. Like, if you pay attention, right? If you have some skin in the game, that and it has to be a significant amount for you to actually care. Otherwise, you'll also just kind of blow things off.
Yeah.
It's like you have to pay attention because you give stuff, and people say this all the time, like, oh, why don't you just give everything away for free if you're doing so well? It's like, well, if I gave it away for free, I wouldn't change as many lives as I do when I actually charge for my service and what I do. And so it's such an interesting thing when, like, I would be willing to share, but sharing never 99.9% of the time doesn't result in anything. It's a waste of my breath. So as much as I would love to share, especially if it's like a buddy of mine or something, it's like, yeah, I was like, are you actually going to do what I say? Or are you just going to just listen and then not take action? Because I don't want to waste my breath if you're not going to take action and get them into a place where they're serious. Like, okay, I would be happy to share, but you gotta get serious first.
That's facts, man. And Brad, I mean, dude, that's why both of you guys are where you're at. I mean, dude, Brad, you're 20 years old and you're making moves. Just hit 1K YouTube subscribers. Kyle, dude, you make over 5 figures a month consistently. I mean, you guys ask questions and then take action on what you get. It's literally that simple. People complicate it. It's like, dude, find somebody who's where you want to be, ask them how they did it, and then do it. That's it. You know what I mean? But oftentimes that's an ego thing, right? It's like just being able to say, dude, I don't have all the answers, man. I've been trying it myself for years sometimes for some people, and just being able to, I had a sales call the other day with this kid, and dude, I just couldn't get him to say like, yeah, bro, I don't have all the answers. And he clearly didn't, because he had been trying this stuff for years on his own. And he was just still at that point of, dude, I think I'm super close. And it was just incredibly obvious that he wasn't anywhere near where he wanted to be. And it's like, okay, man, wish you the best, right? Just being able to ask for help and ask questions. That's anybody we look up to. They're really good at that. Like they seek people out who are above them and they ask them what they're doing and then they do it. They replicate it. That's it. Right. But most people are so stuck in their ways. It's like, dude, I'm going to do it different. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
You
That
can
was the
do it
problem
your
with
own
me.
way, but dude, there's a path, there's
Yeah,
so many paths.
when I was younger, though, I'd always be trying to reinvent the wheel. I'd come into some kind of
Hey,
program or what have you, and I see how they're doing it. I'm like, I think I can do it better. And then I try to do it my way, and then I'd burn out because I'm
same.
reinventing everything and starting from scratch. And then I'd go back and be like, And then I'd be
Just
like,
gotta
man,
give in,
it
bro.
didn't work. And they'd be like, you didn't even follow what we said, dude. You went off on your own. Like, what did you expect?
Kyle,
I was like,
you started a completely different company, bro. No,
yeah,
I
exactly.
was
Like,
the
you
same
started a
way,
completely
man.
different business than what we coach on. So of course you didn't see results. And I was like, well, but,
Yeah,
but,
but I'm super close, man. Yeah.
yeah, but I'm super close. Ah,
Get humbled through those experiences of like, dude, like this is actually harder than I thought it would be. There's people above me who have it figured out, or at least they know something. I think, dude, we can learn from everybody, right? It's like, even if the people don't have like the perfect life, you guys talk about that a lot, right? With mentors, especially Ty Lopez, like he was my first, I feel like, mentor. He was the OG course creator. People forget and hate on him, but he was like the first one to do this stuff. And he talked all the time about, especially, I don't know if you guys did like 67 steps. Did you do that, Kyle?
I don't know if I did
Remember that?
67. I did the SMMA, Ty
Yeah,
Lopez
yeah,
stuff.
I did that one too. And then he had like a prequel, which is called the 67 Steps. It was like rewiring your brain for success, right? And he talked about like there's people who are where you want to be and you can learn from them. And the only thing that's going to hold you back is thinking that they have to be perfect. And that was like profound to me, is like, dude, most of these people are not perfect, but if they're successful in one particular thing that you want to be good at, you can still learn from them, right? And it's like most of those people are actually pretty like messed up. Like they're not perfect. So, there could be a homeless guy who has something figured out. Like if he's just happy as shit, not on drugs, not, mentally ill. Like, dude, how are you so happy? Like, tell me, but that takes a different level of just like ego death, which is tough,
Yeah.
even for me.
I think just the concept of mentoring and just talking to people who know more than you. I definitely used to have the mindset of like, I don't need any sort of mentor. I don't need to listen to other people. I'll figure it out myself. And to a degree with certain things, it might be true, right? But when you have someone to hold you accountable and someone who knows more than you and is guiding you in certain areas, it makes things so much easier because it's like, all right, well, let's say, I mean, Cory, you're mentoring me in a bunch of aspects. Is I could have just said, all right, now I'm going to do it by myself. And either two things would have happened. Either I wouldn't have ended up doing it at all, or number two, it would have taken me like what 3 5 years. But instead, if I pay someone just a little bit of money, investing in myself, it's not like I'm just buying some random expensive thing that I don't really care about. It's like I'm investing in myself. I'm gaining knowledge from someone
Yeah.
who knows more than me, and I'll be able to complete this in, let's say, a year compared to 5 years. It's like if a flip in my mind switch, why not do it, right? And concept you said about how a lot of people who are like quote unquote successful and are successful in a lot of areas are still, they're not perfect. They're
They're
still
not.
struggling in a lot of areas. Stephen Bartlett has his own podcast, Diary of a CEO, and he
He's great,
has
man.
famous people on all the time, like NBA players, different scientists, blah, blah, whatever. And he was talking to Chris Williamson, who is one of my favorite podcasters as well, who I watch him all the time. And they were having a conversation together. And Stephen was talking about how he asked a bunch of his guests, all these famous people, are you being driven or dragged by your purpose, success, whatever? And it's a really interesting question because it's like, are you achieving this goal because you're driven and this is my passion, this fulfills my soul? Or is it, well, I need to become the best because everyone always told me I was never good enough. And once I get this, once I'm this good, then people will finally think I'm good enough. And this isn't always black and white. Like I think for me and for probably 99% of individuals, it's a little bit of both, right? It's like, you're being driven because it does fulfill your soul what you're doing. But there's also a little part of you where, when you were a kid, mommy and daddy or the kids on the playground or whoever said, no, you're not good enough. You're never going to be able to do this. So that you're also being a little bit dragged by it, that you need to do it. So I thought that was a super interesting concept.
Yeah, for sure. And hitting on the point of everything's not perfect and being a business coach and being in the mentorships and all these different things I've seen, it's crazy because like you start seeing that everybody's just an idiot. you know, like it really is. It's like I've been in multiple businesses where I've seen how things are structured and set up. I'm like, this could be done so much better, but it doesn't matter. Right? That's the beauty of the whole thing. It's like they are making imperfect action. Like their systems and processes aren't perfect. They don't care. They're still making $100,000 a month. And it's like Jesus, wait, what? And it's like, what? Like, this isn't even like fishing. This completely breaks all the time. They don't care. They're still making $100,000 a month. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay. And like that started like seeing like the backside of some of these businesses sometimes. I'm just like, how is this person doing this? Like,
bro.
what in the
It's
world? You
it's
know?
so funny you bring that up. I talked with a recruiter yesterday. She does over $100,000 a month, and she has for the past like 2 years. She has no processes, none. She literally just like posts on social media, messages people randomly, and closes like $50,000 deals every day. I mean, not every day, but clearly twice a month. And I was like trying to find an angle because I was gonna send her some VAs, people like that, and she's like, "Yeah, I don't think I really need to do anything different." I was like, "I actually agree with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever you're doing, like, and she's raking in 100 bands a month, but she's an action taker. She's a go getter. She just does it. I think Grant Cardone is definitely like the king of that. I mean, the guy is not like technically sound, but everybody knows him, and he's like a billionaire at this point. He's not like the smartest guy in the world. He's just not. He just 10x takes action all day long. Like, and good things come from that.
Yeah. And I think taking imperfect action is hard. Like,
It is.
me seeing all this stuff and being like, and telling myself constantly, I need to take imperfect action. I need to take imperfect action. I still don't. Right. I still am like, but like this could be better. This could be a little better before I launch this thing, or before I do that. I need to tweak this. And like, this isn't exactly how I want it. I want this to be yellow, not green. Like these tiny little details that don't matter. I'm like,
Yeah.
like this needs to be like this, but specifically for some reason. And it's like, that's the difference between like me making 10,000 a month and other people making $100,000 a month. They know where to focus their energy and their time that actually move the needle. And they're like, I don't need these systems and processes where I'm like, everything needs to be perfect and everything needs to be put together and automated. And it's like, no, just get in there and get it done
Let's
first,
go.
and then start. If you really care about automation, then like, and just invest in somebody that can just get it done for you. No,
Yeah.
dude, don't focus your time on that. Just open it and run your business. And that's just like a huge thing for me. And the biggest part of that is that, again, I know that I need to take imperfect action, but I still feel like I can't sometimes. And a lot of times I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I'm getting
It's
into the
all
habit of being like, this is good enough. Okay, moving on. This is good enough. Moving on.
Yeah. That's the exact statement, bro. Is like, I think it's all, I mean, obviously perfectionism, but mostly fear of failure, right? It's like Grant Cardone. I mean, dude, he was like nearly bankrupt in '08, and he was just like, obviously it scared the shit out of him. He talks about that, but it's like, okay, dude, I've been at rock bottom, and I think since he's been there, he like lost everything. It's just like, don't care. You think, and that's the way that this lady was as well. She's just like, yeah, I go to the beach 3 times a week. She's fine with nothing. I think those kinds of people are just like fine with nothing as long as their family's good. But it's almost like a game, right? They kind of gamify it. Like Jeff Seckinger talks about that a lot. It's like the more you can treat this stuff like literally just like a game, like a video game, because it kind of is. You're just gonna have fun with it. Where I think a lot of people kind of get in their head of like has to be, perfect.
Yeah.
Which I struggle with that too, of course.
It's like, I need to make sure I have it in my schedule that I'm going to go to the gym 7 times a week and this is going to get done and this. And it's like, oh, but I don't have time on Thursday. So I'm going to wait till next week. And next week rolls around. Oh, wait. Oh, crap. I have this presentation next week. And then it's like, this boils down to the whole New Year's resolution bullshit. I mean, it's like everyone's, it's January 1st. I have my New Year's resolutions. I'm going to start getting into the gym. I'm going to start my business. I'm going to start making my life better. I'm going to start catering to my relationships and
Then they fizzle
focusing
out.
it. And then it just doesn't happen, right? Because we don't take action. I also think so many of us are just thinking about it in the end goal. It's like, okay, this thing might take 5 years to do, right? But it's like, focus on the small things. Everything that is big started from small steps, right? It's like, if you don't start, well, obviously you're not going to get anywhere. So as simple as it sounds, and it is simple, although sometimes it's hard to get yourself to do it, you literally just have to start. Even if you don't have it all figured out, you just start and things start to work out. Of course, things are going to happen. There's going to be pitfalls. There's going to be failures. There's going to be difficulties. There's going to be adversity. But you're going to get where you want to be if you just take action. I mean, I've heard that from literally anybody who's successful in any area of life is, well, I didn't have it I had no idea what I was doing when I first started, but I started.
It's the
Yeah.
one common. That's the one thing they all have in common.
Yeah,
Sorry, go
and
ahead,
And
Tom.
I think it's funny that you said that because I actually almost did the same thing. Well, I did do the same thing. I was like, this weekend I'm going to plan my routines again because I got back from Europe like 3 weeks ago, and since I've been back, I kind of just been not in the routine and kind of just winging it, and I felt it especially this morning. I was like, man, I need to get my routine back. So I have Friday off, so I have a 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm gonna be planning it all out and updating my calendar and putting everything back into the routine since being back now. And I think it's funny because I was like, yeah, well, I'm gonna do it. I was talking to a manager, but like a mentor, this morning, and he was like, "Why are you waiting till tomorrow or Saturday or Sunday to do all that? What are you gonna do today?" And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"You're right." And he was like, "Here's a simple thing that you can do just to help yourself because you haven't been working out like you should be." I was like, "Yeah," or like you want to be. I was like, "Yeah." He's like, between like what you got going on today, when you have a moment, just max out push-ups, and then on another break you have in between something, max out squats, and that's it. Those are the two things. Just do that, and that'll get you kind of almost jump started back into okay, I do need to work out and be active again. And that's better than putting it off till Friday and then putting it off again until Saturday because oh no, Friday was busy and then Saturday was busy and so you didn't get to do stuff. So now it's Sunday, like just like you were saying, right? You just keep pushing it off, and then next week comes along and you didn't make a new routine yet, and you're like, dang it, I forgot, I missed out on making my new routine, and getting everything back on track. And then it's next week, and then it's the week after that, and it's like the main point you made was after 2 weeks having a lifestyle in a certain way, it becomes a habit and it's gonna be
Mm,
like 10 times harder to get out of that habit. So you need to nip it in the butt sooner rather than later.
yeah.
And so you bringing that up kind of reminded me of that this morning. I had that conversation. So
I also think it's like it's so weird that there's certain things that we put off, but we know are going to help us. Like for example, right when summer ended, I took like a month off of the gym because I was switching gyms and I was like, oh, I'll do it next week, blah, 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 I'll get it, whatever. So I ended up taking like a month off. And then once I got back in the gym and how good I felt and feeling throughout my body and the work that I'm doing, it's like, I realized I'm like, why did I give myself so much time off? It's just so amazing. Like you said, it's like even if you know that it's not going to serve you, if it becomes a habit, well, the mind doesn't really care what's positive and negative. It's whatever the habitual thing is. That's what it's going to go with.
Atomic Habits, baby. Yeah, that was one of the first books my first mentor sent me, and it was like, yeah, makes sense. Whatever's within our grasp, we're gonna reach for it. Whatever. I mean, it's like our habits just completely run our life. We think we have control, but dude, the only thing you have control over is your habits, but your habits have control over your life, which is to me pretty profound. It's like, yeah, I mean, dude, if I have pizza in the house, I'm gonna fucking eat it. Like, dude, I'm gonna eat that shit in one sitting. So it's just like, you can't let pizza in the house. Now it's like, dude, there's more temptations and distractions and all that than ever. It's easier in a lot of ways, but it's also harder in a lot of ways too to get to where you want to go because of these things right here. It's all at our fingertips, right? It's tough, man. Yeah. But if you can have
yeah,
control over just your domain and your environment, like that's probably half the battle, you know? Like now I have a gym like in my complex here and I've been working out way more as opposed to when I was traveling. I just didn't work out because, I got to go 15 minutes to the freaking gym. Yeah.
I,
and I
I,
wanted
I, I
to
wa-
mention something about taking action that you talked about before, Mighty Brad. Oh, I had Mighty there. But I think it's interesting because I am really bad. Like I like just like what Corey was talking about, right? Like this is at my fingertips. I play this phone game because my buddies play the phone game and I want to kind of be included, and so I play that. Or I hop on
Instant
YouTube and
dopamine rush. Yeah.
yeah, I get the
So easy, dude.
dopamine. My ADHD kicks in. I'm all like, this isn't fun anymore. I want to do this other thing. But the fact that I do take action is what's gotten me to where I'm at currently, right? I do
Yeah.
take at least a little bit of action every day,
You
and
do.
all it takes is a little bit. Just one step gets you that much closer. And some days I get crazy hyper focused and I get 100 steps in. I'm like, holy cow, But then other days I get 1-2 steps in. It's like, okay, I'm still making progress. It was not as much progress as I wanted, but I'm still making progress, and that's what I gotta keep like
Stacking
kind of
wins.
hitting on. Yeah, stacking wins, exactly. You gotta keep like hitting on like, okay, I'm not the perfect action taker. I'm not no David Goggins out here. I'm not, getting hard all the time or whatever. I'm
Pause.
yeah,
No.
yeah, I'm the
Speak for
I'm
yourself,
just
bro. No.
I'm not like that as disciplined as like I was in the military, but like my discipline still isn't top notch. Like some people might think, oh, you go in the military, you just automatically disciplined. It's like, oh no, not me at least.
Yeah.
But I still take a little bit of action, and that's if someone could take anything away from like our whole conversation is like just start taking a little bit of action.
You're
Stop making
never gonna
excuses for
have
yourself.
you're never gonna have one big day that it all just clicks, But dude, if you want to start posting more content, well, just post one story. Start with one story a week, then do 2 next week, then do 3 the week after that. And I think most people just go balls to the fucking wall, like with the New Year's resolution. I mean, that's exactly what happens, right? It's this massive rush, and then boom, you can't maintain it. It's not realistic, but it's so
Right.
tempting to just go like ape shit for a week. And then, I mean, that happens all the time, especially in business. Is like, dude, I'm launching this company. Okay. Crickets a month later. I mean, that's 99% of people, But I think when you have the end goal in mind, it's like, dude, I'm just going to, after work, if I really seriously want to get out of my job, I'm just going to read a business book for 10 minutes every day for the next month. And I even did a reel this one time. It was like, if you read, I think it was like 10 pages a day or something like that. It was something insane. It was like you can read like 30 books a year. Crazy. Right? But most people don't read any books because it's like, well, I'm going to read a whole book in a day. No, you're not, And even if you do, you're never going to do it again because it was so like painful. Right?
Some people really like doing that though. Some people are really like reading and can read a book in a day and they love it. They'll do it the next day and the next day. But reading is
Most
hard
people
for me.
can't though. Most people
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah. Picking up a book, especially for my generation, and even you guys, it's
Unheard of.
I had to start to rewire my brain to be able to sit and have this book open for more than 5 minutes before I want to pick up my phone. Most people aren't even at that point. Most people are like, I will never pick up a book again in my life. I have my phone. And it's like, the great thing about reading is, it takes you away from the technology. It has words on a piece of paper, and it allows you to be a little bit patient and slow down and take in the information. And also it's like, I mean, you probably don't even want to read a book in a day. I mean, if you just do it as a hobby and you read like fantasy stuff, okay. But if if I'm reading The Power of Now, right? It's like I don't want to read the entire. Like this book has so much knowledge. Even if I just read a page a day, but actually read the page and ingrained that information into my mind, it's like that would do me so much greater. That would give me so much more knowledge rather than if I just read the entire book in the day. Because if I read the entire book in a day, maybe I'd take like 5 things away from it, but I wouldn't even remember anything else because I'm just taking in too much at one time. I feel like Kyle's trying to find a book, or maybe it's the same book.
I always if I have the book, I want to show The Power of Now. Let's go. It's on the list. I haven't read it yet though. I always get the hardcover, dude.
I mean, the whole concept we're talking about, right, is a compound effect. That was probably like the second personal development book I ever read. And it's like, dude, it makes sense. It's a hockey stick, right? It's going to be slow at first and you're not going to notice anything. Like I always use the analogy of like posting on social. Like obviously that's what I help a lot of people with. And it's like, dude, you're not going to have any response whatsoever for like a year, or at least like months. But like I posted a story the other day. It was a story series, and I'd done these story series before, and I didn't really get much of a response. But we got literally like 10 leads from this story series last night. But I kept, even though it wasn't working at first, I just kind of told our setter like I'm gonna keep doing this and keep an eye on it. And sure enough, like it popped. But I feel like if I didn't have that kind of compound effect approach, knowing that it's going to be a hockey stick with everything we do, I would have just said, okay, well, this doesn't work. But that's, how do you know that? You know, working out too. It's like, dude, most people, okay, this doesn't work. Dude, you've been
Well,
working out for 2 months.
that's what's hard about these long-term goal things, right? Because like the biggest thing about burnout is that you're putting in a ton of work and not seeing any results.
Yep.
And there's actually a huge correlation that I've seen with working out and business. It's like it's the same kind of thing. It's like you got to put in a lot of work before you start seeing real results, and it takes some time. And other people usually notice it before you do. You know, they're like, "Wow, you lost weight." You're like, "Oh, I guess I
Yeah.
have. I didn't know you could see that."
Yeah.
And it's
I
like,
felt like I was going nowhere.
yeah, it's like I didn't feel like I guess I haven't stepped on the scale in a while. And you step on the scale, you're like, "Wow, I have lost 10 pounds. Holy
Oh,
cow!
shit.
Wait a second, this is working."
Yeah.
And then once you stick with it long enough to see some results, then it's like, okay, cool. Then you have like the confirmation that you needed. But it's just such a long awaited thing typically for most people that they can't hack it, man. They can't push through. It's hard.
Yeah, in a lot of cases, like the importance of like small conscious wins. Let's say the gym, for example, like you might be in there for a month or two, you don't notice any significant changes, but it's like, well, you could break it down to an even smaller scale. It's like, all right, you went to the gym today. You don't look 10 times bigger than you did yesterday, but how do you feel? Oh, I feel pretty good today. I pushed a little bit more. It's like, all right, well, you feel good after doing it. Okay, that's a win, right? Okay, I did 5 pounds more today than I did last week. That's a win, right? It's like we neglect the small wins and we just think, all right, once I get to once I get to the final goal, then I'll be happy, then I'll be fine. But it's all BS. You got to, that's what everyone says, enjoy the journey, the process of it, and celebrating those small wins is, I found it's like super essential.
Yeah. Delayed gratification for the big goal, but also it's like, dude, hey, I worked out today, cool. That's a win. I did 10 minutes. I walked for 10 minutes today. Cool. And it is that balance between delayed gratification, because it's like, I think that is another like common trait of successful people is like they're really good at pushing off like gratification and pleasure for like long-term achievements, but they do celebrate the small stuff along the way. Like Ed Milet talks about that a lot. It's like, dude, if you don't celebrate, okay, you just closed a massive deal. If you don't celebrate, like you're literally eventually, you're not going to have the same dopamine hit, or not going to push for that dopamine hit next time because you didn't even get it, right? Dopamine is obviously like what drives pretty much everything we do. And it's like, if you don't celebrate a little bit, like, dude, smoke a cigar. Who gives a fuck? Like, you're going to be fine. Whatever you want to do, but it's like you're not going to push for it that next time if you don't want to go crazy and buy a table or something like that and pop bottles and film a music video, but do that once you do hit $1 million in sales for the year for sure. But along the way, what can you give yourself that's going to genuinely be like a reward? I think it's different for every person. Like Kyle doesn't like cigars. He gives me shit all the time for it. But, for him, it might be, dude, video games. Like, cool. Dude, I hit my projections. I'm going to take a whole weekend or a whole day and just chill out and do whatever I want.
Flip side of that is that if you hit your projections and you hit a goal and a milestone, great, reward yourself. But if you missed them, also punish yourself, because then you'll force yourself to want to not have that uncomfortable.
That was unacceptable. How am I gonna feel?
Like actually like physically punish yourself. Like now, like for me, like, well, now I didn't do well this month, so now I can't play video games for the whole month. Like, and like it's kind of hard to discipline yourself like that because you can obviously just go do it still.
Yeah.
But like really punishing yourself and be like, no, I messed up. I need to really focus on this other thing now, and then doing that, and then like pushes you even further to be like, I don't want to do that again because I miss playing video games or whatever the thing is for you, right? Like I need to hit my like, so you gotta work a little extra harder to make sure that you don't miss a whole month of playing video games. Or I keep saying video games, but whatever it would be for whoever's listening. But yeah, I think that's a big thing too. Not only just rewarding yourself so that you chase the dopamine, but also you're running away from pain, uncomfortability, and being like, wait, I don't want to get in that situation either. So you have this like this I think that's magnets, right? This one's propelling you, this one's grabbing you. So
it's the same thing a coach would do. Like, I don't know if you guys played sports, but I played football in high school, and it's like, if you fucked up, dude, you're getting embarrassed in front of 50 people on Saturday when you watch film. And it's like that should happen. It doesn't really happen in today's society. It's like, okay, Kyle, you tried.
Consolation prize.
It's like, dude, like, if you want to like actually get to that level, there should be some like reflection of like, dude, I messed up. You got to feel that pain of like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and that's not acceptable. But if I did, same thing. The coach is like, dude, nice job tonight. You're like, okay, I want that next time. I want that approval next time. And I think we can totally do that just within ourselves as well.
There's multiple aspects. Those are really good points, and there's multiple aspects to it too. Because I think so much of the time it's like people don't do the reflection aspect. Like people know they kind of made a mistake and they know they feel horrible, but they don't reflect on it so that they can get better. And I think the issue is that people make mistakes and then they just say, "Oh, I guess I can't do it. I guess I need to give up, whatever," and then they stop. Whereas, your point, if you make the mistake, you acknowledge you made the mistake. Okay, I'm a human being. It happens sometimes, but what can I do and what can I learn from this so that I don't do it again in the future, right? But it's like,
Yep.
I think it goes along with the victim mentality of like any sort of negative thing that ever happens, it's like it's the end of the world. But it's like, well, if you just shifted your mindset a little bit, it's not the end of the world. I mean, you just make a few changes and well, their life is better again. But instead, you choose to just say, "Oh, my life sucks because this one thing happened," and then you suffer for the next 10 years of your life because of it. It's like nobody truly wants it to go that way, but that's how we kind of voluntarily do it nowadays, which is fucking awful.
Yeah, you really gotta embrace failure and make it a learning experience rather than a detrimental situation for yourselves. And that's like a big thing that's really helped me out in my journey as well. It's like, no, I want to push towards failure because if I'm failing, that means I'm learning because I tried something and that iteration didn't work. So let's reiterate and reattempt whatever that thing was. And that's the resilience and pushing towards failure and being told no all the time. Like those are all kind of in the same ballpark that you need to really make entrepreneurship work for yourself because you are going to try things, especially if you start trying to do it yourself, and it's going to be hard. And yeah, what can you do? you know, you just gotta buck up and get thick skin and make things happen.
Yeah. I think the most frustrating thing for me, bro, is like a lot of times you'll learn the lesson and you'll be like, dude, that's never going to happen again. And then it still does always happen again. Like especially with sales, like, dude, I've been doing this stuff for like fucking 6, 7 years now. The same stuff still will occasionally happen. And I'm just like, that pisses me off more than anything because it's 100% my fault. I could have got that guy to a yes, but there's still going to be days where I don't.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to be okay with that. But that is the most frustrating part is like, even though you are going to learn from it, you still have to give yourself grace of like, dude, this is still, extremely difficult stuff. And I'm still going to make mistakes. Tom Brady still had interceptions and incompletions, even though he's like a 7-time Super Bowl champion. I think the difference is like, but it should piss you off. Like, I think a lot of people run from being mad and being upset and feeling pain. It's like, dude, anytime he lost, anytime Kobe lost, anytime MJ lost, you did not want to be around them that night. Good. Like, that's how it should be. Dude, if you expect to win, every time, but they still lost sometimes. And that I think is super frustrating for those types of guys who just, it's just like you expect it, but it's still going to happen. And it's this dance of like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure it doesn't happen, but it's still going to happen. And you still have to be like willing to reflect even deeper and like forgive yourself, and that's a tough one. I think for a lot of super driven people.
Comment on something that you mentioned in there. You're on a sales call and you could have got this person to a yes. I can already hear people in the comments going, "Oh my God, he's just trying to sell people." But another mindset thing is that when you have a service that genuinely helps people and gets them to a better place, it's your duty to get them
I
to
could have
say
changed
yes.
that guy's life, and he
Exactly.
I
It's
didn't.
like it's not about just getting the sale. It's about changing that person's life, and
Yep.
you know that what you have can do that for them. They just are scared because maybe it costs a little bit more than they're expecting, or
Yep.
they get nervous and they're scared of change or whatever they got going on. Um, I just wanted to talk about that because I can already hear people in the comments going, "Oh my God, he just cares about the sales." Like, no, it's about changing people's lives and making sure
Yeah.
that they go with us rather than someone else that could potentially be maybe not a scam, but like not provide as much and as well of a service as your service provides, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's something that when you're running a business, you got to think about. Like everybody needs to kind of have that mindset of like, no, what I have is the best, and that's why
Yeah.
people need to buy it, and I'm really saving their life, or I'm really helping them out in whatever aspect your thing helps with, right? Um, and that's another big thing I think is really important for entrepreneurs to really understand, because you get imposter syndrome and you start thinking, oh well, I'm not. I'm not. Why am I even here? I shouldn't be. I'm not qualified to be doing this thing or that thing or what have you. It's like, who says who? Says you. You probably are. You're probably more qualified than the people you're going to be talking with. Otherwise, they wouldn't be reaching out to you. So, but yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point.
Facts.
And I mean, it's like, I mean, something like imposter syndrome sometimes comes just on at your own will by your negative thoughts, or it's from, something someone else said. Like I put out content, Cory puts out content, countless people put out content, right? And it's like, I get a ton of positive comments and a ton of positive feedback. I also get a ton of negative feedback. And some people are also like there was a time, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out with a few of my boys, and there were some people there that didn't know me. And, for some reason, the topic came up of that I'm, starting coaching. And one of the guys, he's my age, right? He's like, well, at this point, I was 19 because I just turned 20, but he's like, you're 19. You think you're qualified to do this? Coaching people, changing their life. It's like, this is like a big thing. And I looked at him, I'm like, yeah, I am confident from the work that I've done in my own life and what I've been through that I can help people. This always goes back to you. It's like, no matter what you do, certain people are going to judge you for it. Not everyone's going to support you. Are you going to let that, impact you and prevent you from doing it? Like, I mean, if I was in a different mindset and a different mind space at that time, he could have said, oh, you don't, you sure you're qualified for this? And I would have been like, man,
Maybe I'm not.
you're right. You're right. I'm only 19 years old. I don't know anything. Oh my God. But and obviously I don't know everything. Obviously I'm learning new information every day, and I'm never gonna know everything. I'm always improving myself still. But yeah, so I'm confident in what I'm doing. I think it always comes down to valuing your opinion and belief of yourself more than you value the belief and opinions of other people. And that isn't to say you can't take constructive criticism and listen to other people, because obviously people can give good advice and good constructive criticism. But sometimes when it's just a situation like that, oh, you really think you're qualified for it, it's like you got to throw that out the window, because it's not really going to be a beneficial thought to have floating around in your mind.
Yeah, it took me a while to be able to have the confidence to be like, oh, like you feel like you're knowledgeable enough in this? I'm like, hell yes, I am. Like, absolutely. Tell me anybody in your life right now that knows more than about business than me. Like, it's like all I want to talk about. Like, it is me. Like I live and breathe this. Like, there's no one more qualified in your vicinity. And that's the big thing about coaching too, right? You don't necessarily have to be the perfect. You don't have to be perfect to know every single thing and have built 10,000 businesses and all of them made $1 million. You just literally need to be at least one step ahead of the person you're coaching. That's it.
You can always help
Just
someone,
one
man.
step. You can always help somebody, right? And
Yeah.
you're not, just because you're a coach doesn't mean you're coaching Grant Cardone's, right?
Yeah.
You're still, you can be helping people that don't know what's going on at all. And
Yeah.
you're helping them take their first step. Like people think, oh, you think you can coach? And I think they start thinking about bigger people. Like, you're the Ty Lopez, you're the Billie Jean, you're the whoever, Gary V. And it's like, no, like I'm just helping the people that were in my position last year get to where I'm at this year.
That's your client. Who
That's your
you
client.
were 2-3 years ago, dude. That's your perfect client.
And
And
then
you
off
see it all
that,
the time. You
yeah,
see it all the time with like recovering drug addicts. Like, it's like, dude, oftentimes the sponsors are like, a year clean themselves, but dude, you're still clean. You can still help somebody who's messed up. Like, bro, your life is not perfect at all, but you can literally save somebody's life by putting yourself out there. And hey, man, I'm still struggling every day, but this is going to help me myself by helping other people. I always think back to that, man. It's like, you can always help someone for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of those negative thoughts come from people that are like thinking that you're going to be this big time, huge coach. And it's like, well, no, I'm a small
Won't
time
have to
coach.
be. Maybe I
Yeah.
will. Maybe I won't, bro. Who
And then
cares?
that's a good baseline too, because then the more you do it, the more you'll level up, and then you'll always be one step ahead of everybody else. So that and you'll start have a bigger umbrella, and that's where you got to start. So I just think it's something that I had to think about too, so I can get to that point where I'm like, hell yes, I'm qualified. Especially coach your ass. You don't know anything. I said, like, for instance, a real quick little side story. I was talking to a buddy. He was like, "Yeah, I want to start pressure washing people's houses or like start doing some pressure washing stuff." I was like, "Cool." Like on the side, I was like, "Yeah, solid, do it, man." And then they're like, "Oh, but like, what about this and that?" Like they're asking about all these different things and liability and all this. I'm like, "Yeah." And I said something I felt super simple to me, and they were like, "Wow, that's so smart." I was like, "What?" That was like super simple. But they were like, "Man, like going to the house and like." Having to move everything off of the patio and put it back on, and I was like, "Yeah, you just charge for that." They're like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, you tell them, 'Hey, get it prepped for me to come and clean the thing, get all the stuff off of it. If I get there and the back patio still has the barbecue and still has all the furniture on it, it's gonna be a $50 charge for me to move that stuff and move it back on for you.'" And then hopefully one, you do it carefully so nothing breaks, so liability is not an issue. But then two, you get an little extra money from that job because they are too lazy to move the stuff. And apparently it wasn't worth $50 for them, so they would rather pay you to do it. And so boom. And they're like, "Wow, that's so smart. Like, how did you think about that?" I was like, "What?" Like, I just feel like common sense to me, but I guess I've watched a lot of videos and it's just ingrained in my head. It's like just charge them for that. Um, and even that little thing was like coaching them, and it was it seemed so simple to me, but like was like a almost felt like it sounded like a breakthrough to them. I was like, okay, and that also helps you see like, okay, yeah, I could just coach people on some simple even things that seem natural to you, but not so natural to everybody else.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, on the idea of like imposter syndrome, like I still deal with it at times in recent times, and it's like, but it's not to the degree that it used to be. And it's what I've come down to realize, and me and Corey talk about this is like, it's like giving yourself credit. It's like, you whatever you're coaching on, whatever you're knowledgeable about or teaching, it's like, you have done the work and you have, gotten to the place that you are. Are you a perfect human being? No, and that's okay because nobody's a perfect human being, and if somebody tells you that they are, they're lying. You could be close to your idea of perfect, I suppose, but nobody's ever going to be completely perfect, and that's just the reality. And I think it's coming down to realize that that is okay. It is okay to be this. What we were talking about before. It's okay to be imperfect. It's actually required to live in society and make connections with people. I mean, we can build connections with people based on our imperfections, right? It's like, all right, I'm not that great on this. All right, well, this person has the knowledge to help you with it. And you guys, you're having this conversation with your friend, and that allows your bond to grow better. It's like your imperfections are what drive certain connections and meeting certain people. Because if I went around, if I went around and just told everyone I'm the best person in the world, I know absolutely everything. You listen to every word that comes out of my mouth, never question anything. People would look at me and say, "Oh, Brad's an asshole. I'm not going to listen to anything he has to say." And it's like some of the knowledge that I am saying it might be valuable, but if I'm presenting myself that way, well, then nobody's going to want to take it. I had this situation in the past when I was in high school, when I was starting just self improvement in general. I think like 2 years in or a year in, whatever it was, most of my friends weren't doing it. And one of them in particular, one of them told me that another one of my friends was talking about how Brad thinks he's so good. He thinks he's better than everyone else. He thinks he's like a spiritual master and blah, blah, blah. And I heard that and I was like, well, none of my other friends viewed me that way. And so I'm like, well, I don't think I'm that good. Like, yeah, I think I have a decent amount of knowledge in these areas and I like helping people with it and, helping myself. But no, I'm not perfect. And I never said I was. But it's like, some people get the perception. So it's like sometimes people have an opinion of you and it might be true. Like if every single one of my friends came up to me and said I was being an asshole, et cetera, then okay, there's something I need to look at within my life. But if it's 1 out of 10 people, well, then it's probably something that's going on in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say Tanner Chittister is really good at that, man. He just went in a rough patch of his business. I mean, he does like 80 mil a year, but he was super transparent. He's like, dude, we're doing bad right now. And he's just been putting out a ton of content on all the mistakes he's made over the past like 6 months. And I thought that was super refreshing. And I'm sure he's gotten out of that hole because he was vulnerable. And he was like, dude, like, these are the mistakes we made, you know, just to show you guys like what's real, you know. And he doesn't like flash Lambos anymore. And like, you know, dude, look at my Miami penthouse, which he has all that stuff, I'm sure. But now he's like making the shift to, dude, here's how we fucked up, you know. And I thought that was super cool. And I'm like, dude, I actually might, you know, his program is like 16K, but I was like, just the fact that he took the time to just be super transparent like that, like, that's the kind of coach I think a lot of people want, you know. It's
Earning
like,
a lot
dude,
of
like,
goodwill and
yeah, it's like, dude, you're
respect.
just a real ass dude, you know. And it's super hard to be vulnerable like that. Especially, I mean, he has like, you know, hundreds of thousands of people who watch his every move. You know, can you imagine, like, dude, we're headed for bankruptcy right now. I don't think he actually is, but he was saying like, dude, we've had a bad year, you know, or it was something like that. And I thought that was refreshing, especially from a guy like him. So if he can do it, I would say, boys, we can do it too, for sure.
I don't even want to make him 80 million a year. That's not my goal.
It's insane, man.
My goal is just 1 million a year. You know?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it's like the point of it is like people resonate with you when you're honest and you're transparent, like
Yeah.
you were saying, Cory, and
Dude.
you're just you're a real person. You're being authentic, right? Like people can relate to that, right? It's like, okay, you might just have the perception of this guy that he makes $80 million a year, and that can be beneficial. But also, it's like him coming out there and voicing his mistakes. It's
We
like you
still have these
realize
problems. Yeah.
this guy's still human. There's still
Mhm.
mistakes that are being made, and you know it's not perfect all the time. And it's like you relate that to your own life. It's like not only does it make you like him better, but also helps you, if you have the right mindset, reflect on your own life. And it's just that's a super powerful concept.
Yeah.
Cory and Kyle, I really appreciate you guys coming on today.
It's been fun, man. Hell yeah,
Yeah,
we'll have
always
to
a
do it
pleasure.
again soon. This was a lot of fun.
Talking on my
Absolutely,
favorite topics, man. I can't resist.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us, bro.
Yeah, of course. So right before we hop off, where can everybody check out your content, your socials, etc.?
Go ahead, Kyle.
My socials aren't on par, but just
Yeah,
if you
they
look
are,
up-
man. What we just
Oh.
talk about, bro? Stop.
Let me look. It's facebook.com/Kazile. That's like my main platform. Going to be starting on Instagram here sometime in the near future. Get my wife involved, hopefully, with that. So we'll see how that goes. But again, facebook.com/Kazile. Check me out. Add me as a friend. Shoot me a message.
Let's go, baby. Yeah, just look me up. I'm like the only Cory Utech out there. I have a weird last name, so I'm on mostly Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, we'd love to connect. You know, we help online business owners who are just kind of starting out and looking to scale and pretty much get everything you need to do it. So we'd love to connect. Thanks for having me, Brad.
Yeah,
Real
of
pleasure,
course.
bro.
And I'll link your guys' socials and stuff in the description as well, so you guys can check it out there. Thanks
Good.
so much for coming on, guys. We'll catch you in the next one.
Heck yeah.
Peace.
Peace, guys. Hit them with a flex, baby. Let's go.